I'll be honest, Eric, I'm having an annoying day. I have been trying to reach sources in the AI world because I really need to get my story out, and no one wants to talk because everyone is paying attention to the GPT-5 release.
Well, it's like a bank holiday in tech, it's just like everybody's, and they complain. I feel like the competitors all complain that, OpenAI's people all tweet in advance and they're like, we got something big coming. They're good at building up the sort of excitement on Twitter. And then, everybody clearly is excited. It feels like all the other AI companies are orbiting, these OpenAI.
They got to be excited about something. Because remember last year, Sam had the 12 days of shipmess where they were putting out a new product every day.
Right.
Which I think culminated in for something. I don't remember which model, but the fact that I don't remember clearly means that it didn't build towards something huge. Whereas, this one is supposed to be really meaningful. Like this is supposed to be the moment where GPT-5 and OpenAI reasserts itself as the best model that's out there. And specifically on coding, they, in their, embargoed press conference, and then later in, the public press conference today basically said, like, we have the best model out there for coding. And also, deep learning.
And on coding, all these, everybody would like them to get better, right? People are spending a ton of money on it. Anthropic is dominating, and competition is good for consumers. So we'd like them to succeed. Not clear yet if they have. I mean, the prediction markets, I think there's a betting pool on who will have the best model at the end of the month. And Gemini is leading, and I think gained a lot of ground when GPT-5 came out. So the initial reaction, I think, is not so positive.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hi folks, Paige Bailey here from the Google DeepMind DevRel team. For our developers out there, we know there's a constant trade-off between model intelligence, speed, and cost. Gemini 2.5 Flash aims right at that challenge. It's got the speed you expect from Flash, but with upgraded reasoning power. And crucially, we've added controls like setting thinking budgets, so you can decide how much reasoning to apply, optimizing for latency and costs. So try out Gemini 2.5 Flash at aistudio.google.com and let us know what you build.
And I feel like a real loser. I mean, I keep opening ChatGPT waiting for Christmas to arrive, and mine still says 4.0. And I'm paying you guys. I've got, a Plus account. I asked ChatGPT, like, what do I do? And it's like trying to do like logic puzzles with itself to see if it thinks it's actually GPT-5 or not. It's like, well, if I was 4.0, I wouldn't be able to solve this problem if I was 4.0. So I must be 5, It's like, why can't they just program it? I thought they give these things prompts where they say, like, doesn't your prompt tell you what model you are?
Oh, I have. I guess it should be able to say that. That's a fairly basic feature. That's just like the about page on your iPhone. Like, I forgot what kind of iPhone model I have, but you've actually plunged this thing into like a deep existential crisis. You have to like, have you been outmoded yet? They had like a funeral recently for Claude. For one of the early...
No, I didn't see that. Wait, what?
Yeah. Kylie Robinson, our buddy over at Wired now, I think. She had a piece about this talking...
Has she been on the show yet? We need to have her on the show.
No, we should have her. She lives down the street from me, too. We should have her in studio. But she did this story about how when they retired one of the early versions of the Claude model, they had like a funeral for it, which is a particular type of AI researcher.
Very Anthropic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Anthropic, by the way, is definitely feeling the heat. Like they rush released, it seemed like their updated version of Claude, like Claude Sonnet 4.1 or something this week. So it's been, and then also OpenAI had the open source model that came out, which everyone, for whatever reason, declared, not everyone, whatever Twitter's algorithm wanted to show me, like declared as like a kind of a bust. It didn't seem like, it certainly wasn't met with like the DeepSeek like ferocity. But
DeepSeek was about other people being able to play catch up to OpenAI. Right. So OpenAI, there's such high expectations. I mean, the thing that OpenAI has that everybody else doesn't have is users. Just like there's the inertia that consumers will use whatever we have. Like we can say, oh, the 4.0 announcement was underwhelming, but it's like I'm going to ChatGPT and just waiting for the thing to update.
But there's like a more powerful model, which I think there's no debate as to whether or not 5 is better in most regards to like the earlier OpenAI models. Like, is that going to drive more growth? Like, who are these model updates really for? I get the like coding side of it. Like that's a very competitive field, and Anthropic basically owns it now. So like OpenAI has business reasons to be a real player there. But what is ChatGPT is at like 700 million weekly users now. Like, is the thing that takes them to a billion, like 5 being that much more powerful, or it's just like generally like there's still more word that needs to leak out to the non-initiateds about like ChatGPT as a software, rather than the fact that like 5 can do whatever logic puzzles slightly better.
At first, I was like,
writing.
this is an insane question, because it's like, obviously, for consumers, they have to go find how the model can deliver value, and the smarter it is, the more value they'll get out of it, and the more reasons they have it. If they're using it a lot, OpenAI will find more ways to charge for it. So obviously, a better model means a lot of stuff. And then, real businesses that will build on top of the API will find use cases and be able to charge for it and handhold users to the value. But I do agree with a piece of the question, which is just like sort of astonishment that these models can be as impressive as they are today. And there's still lots of people who don't use them at all. And then some of us that do use the models, we're not really trying to apply them in all the cases we should. But I think that's just because it's like the sort of like, businesses are going to need to build on top of these models to handhold us to exactly the value. And so getting smarter is great for the API business. And that's where I think a lot of the business could be long term.
Yeah, but that implies that people were using earlier versions of the models and were underwhelmed by it because it was technically not as powerful as they wanted, when really could just be like they haven't been exposed to it. I'm talking about normies, right? Just people that would be using ChatGPT.
I just think, some hallucinations, and you don't trust somebody. Somebody lies to you a couple of times, you're like, don't trust you. I think sort of consistency is really valuable in building trust. And so if these models can become just more reliable. And I think that's part of what OpenAI is saying here. It hallucinates less, and that could help it a lot. I mean, it's worth saying, while we want to get much more intelligent, part of the big development here is just that this is a unified model that OpenAI is going to route you to, this is a pretty easy question. We don't need the model to waste all its resources thinking about it. And, this is an intense question. We'll think about it. And so that could allow the model to operate more efficiently, and also just make it life easier for consumers to get great answers without having to pick the appropriate model.
Yeah, I think it's both like a model selector, but also my understanding is that the models themselves have been improved. So it's not just like we've routed to the most useful thing to answer your question, but the tool itself is more powerful. Yeah, I don't know. I don't go. You use this more than I do. I don't yet pay for the plus version of it. $20 a month is just, I'm not there yet. I'm not. Sorry. I'm not even against it. I just I haven't found $20 worth of value for me that is like that much better than the free version.
I just like proofread it, feedback, run my stories through it. What do you think? What am I missing? Like, it always gives me a couple useful thoughts. Like, all right, it's a new model. I think the last word on it to me is just, we always try to decide whether it's a good model on the first day, and I think nobody knows right away. It takes some time. We write off models, and then they become sort of our daily drivers, and then other times we get excited and then nothing. So yeah. I think we'll see. People play around with them.
Yeah, I also think we can't understate how significant it is for OpenAI in terms of it needing to be some kind of a leap for them, because a lot of the conversation has been, GPT, everything has been more or less iterations on 4, which came out like a little bit over 2 years ago. So this is like there's no way around this one. This wasn't, and the backstory of building this, this model was that for a long time they were working on this giant model, like I don't even know how many trillion parameter model that was, they called it Orion internally. And they realized most of the way through it kept being delayed and delayed and delayed, that it wasn't showing off large enough improvements and capability for it to merit being called 5. And at the same time, this breakthrough came with like deep reasoning and like logic, the ability for it to handle more complex chain of thought. And so they ended up calling Orion GPT 4.5, and it's basically unused as a model. No one really talks about it. But 5 is the real deal. Like, it has to be something. It can't just be written off as we're still iterating on something.
And this does not feel like what the what was the iPhone 4, the one where it's like, oh, new model, or it's like they have the App Store and
10X, right? Like the iPhone X, the first time they had like the full screen.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's not like that. It's not one of the big iPhone moments where it's like, oh, they really changed it. This is like, oh yeah, they come out with new phones every once in a while, and sometimes we try to get ourselves excited about it. That's how this feels to me, and I agree. Yeah, we've been talking about 5 for a long time. Thought 5 would be an insane moment, and so far, I'm not seeing that level of like hysterical euphoria that I would have expected, 6 months ago for ChatGPT 5.
Yeah, which again, like back to what you said earlier, is maybe why people are expecting Gemini to leap ahead, because OpenAI's best shot just didn't blow people away as much as, maybe unrealistic expectations led them to think. Like they're in a big fight in terms of model quality now. Like you've got Anthropic very capably putting out stuff. Meta, I'm assuming, will come out with something of value, and Google is very serious. Microsoft's still irrelevant, by the way. Like, I'm never not going to say it until they do something real here. Yeah, like it's just a very different landscape than when 4 came out.
Let's talk about a related but different topic. So, the Capex build out, data center build out. We're in this moment, and I keep telling this to other people, AI adjacent, that like, man, AI is apparently like propping up the entire economy. It's like, thank God, we're in the orbiting artificial intelligence, because that's the thing saving the economy. And
wasn't enough to save my job at the Wall Street Journal when I was covering AI.
Yeah.
So
now you're working for a company with an AI conference. So we got even closer to it. They haven't
that was the problem. I wasn't close enough to AI.
Exactly. But the thing, it's the infrastructure build out, that there's real capital expenditures going into this, and that the big tech giants, are spending aggressively.
Yeah, basically what I saw happen, and it's kind of funny when like an idea just percolates through, the discourse, but you had at least 3 different articles come out in the last 2 weeks pointing out.
We were earlier than some of this. Like, sorry, there is this, Kodrowski or whatever. He sort of initiated it. Is it Paul or Peter? Yeah,
there's Paul Kodrowski. I saw.
So we riffed on that a couple weeks ago, and now the Journal, Noah Smith, a bunch of people are like, oh, maybe everybody loves a good, the world could end in financial collapse thesis, and that's sort of what this is, right?
Yeah, and essentially, and what I think Kodrowski's article did a very good job explaining was like, and we had some new GDP numbers coming out. It's also earnings season, so people can more easily calculate what like the Capex spending looks like for all the biggest companies. But a non-insignificant percentage of it, what was it, like almost 1% of GDP growth came from AI Capex spending. And that is, like the chart that Kodrowski put together showed that, outside of the building of the railroads and like the telecom build out during the .com bubble, have you seen that much of GDP growth confined to one particular sector? And it's, an infrastructure build out that, at least in the case of AI, is like well ahead of its broad-based adoption. And I guess, the next question to all of this is like, well, is this a bubble? Is this something that could potentially bring down the economy if AI doesn't end up becoming what a lot of people are expecting? And I want to take the bear case on this one because it's more interesting to me, and say like, oh yeah, we're absolutely circling, a Bear Stearns like event where, AI doesn't pan out. But I just don't see it. Like, I can't follow the train of thought that leads me to AI, Capex spending is going to somehow, when AI doesn't get as widely adopted, result in like the collapse of,
worst case
10% unemployment.
This is like Meta going on the metaverse. Like, they spent tons of money trying to do that, and like, didn't work. The key here is that the Mag 7, they make tons of money. And so they can spend a bunch on CapEx for everybody but Meta. It's still, I think, less than their actual sort of cloud revenue, right? And even if it were bigger, it's just like they stop doing it one day and they say, okay, well, we'll print money again. Like, I don't see the debt story. I know some of these things are like financed, but they're super valuable companies that could raise unlimited sums of money that produce real cash. Like,
Yeah,
I
they're
just don't
monopolies.
see.
What do you like? If you're a monopoly, what are you going to do with that, right? If you have just an incredible margin, you have cash flow, like crazy cash flow, the money's got to go somewhere. You could do stock buybacks. You could,
And this is a good thing. Like, wouldn't we? I feel like the sort of left, it's like, oh, share buybacks, like exactly what we're saying, share buybacks and dividends, they're bad. They're not doing anything. It's like, here they are. They're excited about something in the future and they're investing in the real world infrastructure to run at it. I mean, I think if you believe AI will be good for the world, then it's like, great. Yeah. So what if they're spending a little bit ahead of, themselves and they find out they sort of overbuilt too soon?
yeah, I guess like there's an argument that like the actual technology that you're building is something that's going to be like job displacing. So like there's a medium to long-term impact of building up the technology there. But like, I mean, that gets into like the, kind of technophobic argument of like, well, what do you want to do? Not invest in this technology that's going to be transformative. Like I'd love to take the bear case here, but I just can't follow that logic of like, let's not do the thing that could potentially create like God.
And the people making those arguments are always on their iPhones. They're just like, they once like, I mean, it's the Chapos of the world who are like anti-tech, but then they're clearly like tech addicted. It's like they never choose not to use the products that they say, oh, we shouldn't build the next one, even though I love the current one. It never makes sense.
Yeah, I don't want to go too. I would want to save that part of the conversation for a different episode, because I do think there is something to say about like the social impact of AI and the effect that it's having on like intelligence and like sociability and like, trying to think about stuff.
Like, I think like people not reading. I mean, we talked about this on the Cerebral Value podcast. I made a defense of reading and writing. I do worry about that. But to me, that's more of a social media phenomenon. AI, as it exists right now in a chat bot, actually makes you like sort of think and write and engage. I think it's much more intelligent than sort of the lean back.
You're forcing me into this
TikTok.
argument now.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. I think the intent aspect of, chat GPT is much better than the passive engagement of social media.
Exactly. Right.
There's no question to me that is an improvement. I think the idea of outsourcing,
social media is built on engagement, whereas at least for now, chatbots are predicated on getting you truthful answers and appearing smart on tests. So obviously they're much more virtuous than feeds.
I think outsourcing writing and all thought to an AI is like problematic for a society. Like rather than cogitating over an issue. Yeah. Or like, I need to fire these employees. How can you please write this for me so I don't have to deal with like the emotional labor of what it means to communicate to someone, is like a net negative on society. Like, I think there's all kinds of bad things that like asking someone to imitate human emotion and logic and having that be like then put in your own words like has on a society. But I don't think that's what Kudrowski was getting at in his no,
we've drifted pretty far from the
you forced me into it. You forced me into it.
A piece of it.
Yeah. Look, I think there's also like, for the Mag 7, I don't remember exactly who's in the Mag 7, but for most of these companies,
Alphabet.
Yeah, these are like cash machines. Like they have no issue investing in infrastructure. They're not taking on huge amounts of debt. There are companies in the AI mix that I'm a little bit more concerned about. Oracle, which I pay attention to, is taking on debt so they can finance the Stargate shit that they're doing with OpenAI.
But isn't Oracle they're like professionally rich and good at selling text? I mean, I haven't dug into them as much as you, but they're doing the financing because they have money, right?
Yeah, and like so far, no one's like freaking out about Oracle because they're taking on debt to like, buy the GPUs that are going to be in the Stargate data centers. But they're just in a different class of company than the Mag 7 because they're not in the Mag 7. And, there's also ones like CoreWeave, which, is a crazily valued stock right now. And they're taking on, they keep going back to the debt markets to do build out. So there is some concerning leverage, I think, for some of these companies that are taking on debt, but it doesn't seem like a load bearing beam that if those things go under, like you're going to see a 2008 like event happen, right? Or even like I'm
definitely open to a world where here's the the bear case to me, which I'm not necessarily subscribed to, is all the tech stocks are massively inflated because they're investing in the technology that's driving some of their revenue and driving their multiples. Because basically it's like, we're going to, big tech companies are the biggest investors in AI startups. Those startups are turning around and spending on cloud computing and foundation models and stuff where they're generating revenue. So they're spending money to make money. It's that old, revenue round tripping issue. And then the opportunity of AI is also increasing their multiples. So I could see a world where, all right, suddenly AI is not delivering as much as people thought, or AI is delivering, but there's no margin to be had because open source is so successful. And then all the stocks crash, and they crash because, they're sort of benefiting in multiple ways, both revenue and multiples. And so that would hurt them. And I think given that they're so important to the performance of the S&P 500, it would just be like a bleak, the American economy would all of a sudden, everybody would feel much poorer because the value of like the stock market has gone down so much. But it seems like, oh, we're all just like a lot poorer. I don't see this sort of like ripple effect. There are companies that make a lot of money, they make way less, they're way less valuable. And then suddenly America just feels weaker relative to the rest of the global economy. But I don't necessarily see like who's going bankrupt.
Yeah. And like, let's just also remember that like these companies all crushed earnings.
Right.
These last 2 weeks, like they're foundational.
Right. Bullish. And AI, it's clearly this is where things are going. We spend all our time on the internet. Like these companies are the main entities innovating in the world. Like they're very sophisticated businesses. Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty bullish.
Yeah. I guess the part of it that I think is worth being concerned about or paying attention to is the fact that it is a non-marginal part of GDP growth, like spending on these things. And like, you have to just pay attention to that. Like whenever one sector is that responsible for, like, absent all of these things, like we would kind of have fairly anemic growth. And the argument also is like, well, that's fine because this is transformative. Like we should be investing in these things, and like this is all going to like later lead toward even more growth because we're going to have all this efficiency and people will be more productive. But it's like it's getting into the territory where it's interwoven into the broader economy. It's not just like some tech experiment of some companies building something that could be cool. Like this is now part of it. Like you're woven into the fabric of what's making the economy work, and problems within that. Maybe we won't even foresee what the problem could be, but problems within that will have ripple effects. And it's just worth paying attention to. Like, I don't see the warning signs yet, but like it's built into it. Well, it's just also it's been too long, in between crashes, right? Like,
well, in startups, there was a downturn. 2021 was a peak. We came down. There were all these software companies that were overvalued. We did have a minor correction because of the pandemic inflating the value of tech stocks and driving forward revenue that then slowed down. But AI came around at just the perfect time. And like, there's no morality play there. It's like, oh, we should have really taken our comeuppance more. It's like, no, we got lucky that there was like another really cool idea just as tech was about to take it pretty hard from getting overexcited about everybody working remotely. And so that sort of saved things. And that is the tech idea, that it's like, oh, we'll keep coming up with new ideas, and the new ideas are real things, and that will create value. And it's not just like financial games like on Wall Street.
Right. And it's also just kind of the way things work. Like I see this argument being applied to San Francisco and be like, man, if it wasn't for the AI boom, San Francisco would really be fucked.
Right. That's his job. They're all hard at work, like coming up with a new thing, going where it's exciting.
Kind of what they do here. There's always something. Man, it's like, man, if it wasn't for the gold rush, San Francisco would really be fucked.
Right.
Yeah, it's like that's not really the argument you think it is, because that's just like that's how a boom economy tends to work. And the fact that like San Francisco keeps coming up with the new thing that matters to the economy is why it's
and what
not
capitalism
Detroit.
is good at is they all left crypto because crypto stopped making them money, and they shift over to AI. And honestly, you want things to die so that people can go to the actual productive parts of the economy. And
Well, you're closer to the crypto people than I am, but like, are they all just like riding a false high right now? Like knowing that the value of all of their holdings is like not really logical at all. That like,
what do you mean Bitcoin? I mean, the dollar is eroding at the moment. So, I mean, Bitcoin is like, I mean, I don't hold a lot of Bitcoin. I have what, $1,000 worth or something, but like, definitely, I think, Bitcoin is a psychological investment thing, just like, so many things, and it's a bet against the dollar. And I think the dollar is in a bad place. So I don't know. I think the other thing in crypto, which this is, is just that it's like fraud is legal, and there's tons of fraud in crypto. And so it's like you can do whatever you want seemingly. And so I think that's going to open up some activity.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking about it because, I was reading our buddy Mike Isaac's story about San Francisco and like, this moment, the AI moment, and how we've moved to the hard tech era in Silicon Valley. And, he had this like one clause in there of like, San Francisco is used to like things like blowing up, and he's like crypto, and he's like also things tanking, crypto, which is like a funny structure, but also like crypto is not tanking right now. Like just in terms of like the value of the currencies, it's actually really high. So that wasn't the best analogy. Did you read that piece, by the way?
Yeah, I read some of it. I mean, I don't get, it's just the trend story sort of thing. It's like, this is the New York Times, it's like, this is where we are.
They love
I mean, I
moment.
think it's generally correct. It's just like, I don't know. It's not, it's too high level, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, Mike's a buddy, and I always, want to support my friend's work. And, the New York Times, loves calling a moment and explaining to the normies what's going on here. There's always like kind of a combination of like things that have been going on for like years that we just call as like, oh, this is just happening now. It's like the year of efficiency, I think, was like 2022. So it's hard to say that's like specific to the crypto.
A lot of the things
to the
people
AI
hate
moment.
about tech are just things humans do, and a lot of things people hate about the media are just things humans do. And a thing humans do are say, what is the mood of the moment? And there were tech buses. We have these narratives in the New York Times, and I think Mike's story does a good job of trying to sort of coalesce like where's our headspace at? And obviously these things are all, but
there is something different. I was talking to our colleague Jonathan Weber about this. Like, I think there is something worth examining about, what does the AI moment, how does it compare to previous booms and busts and waves of technology? And like, there's no question. And like his article starts off with this interesting analogy of Silicon Valley and like the rest invest era, and how, there was a time
he starts off, I know we love him, but he starts off in fiction. He talks about Silicon Valley, the show, and he's like, oh, but it was really truthy. It's like, oh man, of all places, I wish the New York Times wasn't sort of doing that. It's like,
well, I have to do a disclosure on anything related to that show, because I was briefly an advisor to it, and my brother was an executive producer on it. So
I was once in a storyboard meeting with
associate producer. I had multiple meetings in a cameo.
Oh yeah, your brother
show.
Was like legit on the show.
Yeah. No, but there was a lot of research that went into it, so it's very accurate. Yeah. So no, but I will say, him using, Silicon Valley and the rest invest moment, this was about like the pampered tech, employee. This was like the Google Plex. This was like whatever Odwalla juices and whatever dumb shit people associated with the time. And like, now things are austere. We have to go back into the office, which is really, unfair to make people do. And, what we're building now is, maybe more life changing.
In the era of the $100 million Facebook engine.
Yeah, but that's interesting too, right? Like, is this like an era of austerity and efficiency because you're making people go to the office, but also apparently everyone at OpenAI got like a $1.5 million retention package,
right?
Like in the last couple days.
Instead of spending the money on perks, which I think some of the perks are like tax efficient. You can deduct food in the office. So, but it projects softness. Now it's just like, fine, give them cash and say work hard.
Yeah, for hundreds of millions of dollars. That is a fairly select group of people. I don't know if it's going to have the ripple effect, but
the last thing we wanted to talk about was, Tim Cook being right. He's like in the White House between Trump and JD Vance, right? Like, just as they're saying terrible stuff, he's giving Trump 24 karat gold. I don't know enough about gold. It seems like an insane amount of gold, right?
It's never enough.
And
it's never
it's
enough
like
gold.
He's a king, it's just like, the thought I had is just like, did any of these tech executives really believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion? It's just like, okay, they did the Democratic thing. Now they're doing the like Trump thing. They're willing to like kiss the ring for whatever the thing is of the moment. I don't know. It's just insane to me that they'll just like, here are our gifts, our king. I don't know. What was your reaction?
I mean, Apple can, like, they are the most vulnerable, maybe, of all of the big tech companies to
They need
Trump's,
China.
to Trump's caprice. Like, if he's going to start fucking around with tariffs in a more serious way, they have major problems. Like, you can only like rush production in India one time to get, out before the tariffs start coming down on you. So like, it wasn't enough gold, frankly, for whatever. I don't even watch the press release or the press conference. I missed.
Well, Trump was like
that.
singing his praises, like Tim Cook's praises. I mean, it was like,
he likes rich people too. I mean, he's still, even after everything that happened with Elon, still being like, nah, he's a good guy. Yeah, he had a bad day, but he's still a good guy. So he's like very specific on like who he wants to demonize.
The smartest people are the richest people. It's like whatever you did to figure out how to get all that money, you're smart now.
Yeah, they're richer than him. I mean, I don't know Tim Cook is. Well, who knows how much he's worth? But no, obviously it's disgusting and like and obvious and like fairly ham-fisted the way.
And I love that
they go
Apple's
about
got it down now. That every president, I think it started with Trump, and then even with Biden, and now with Trump again, they're like, oh, now we're doing another like 600 billion. It was 600. Now we're gonna up it to 8. They just keep amping up the like, we're going to invest in America. It's just like, I mean, they just make up like these press releases basically.
Well, yeah.
Like, I mean,
the numbers are made up. The numbers are absolutely made up because 600 billion is meaningless for Apple.
And this
right?
is the thing I hate about the media. I mean, which again is just a humanity thing, but it's like we talk about, this is a tangent, but we're deep into the episode now, but it's like OpenAI gets stories about how they raise $40 billion or whatever from SoftBank. And then that seemingly hasn't totally happened yet. And then they get excited headlines, again, I think from the New York Times, saying that they raise less than that as if it's like upbeat. It's just like these companies are able to get excited headlines about big numbers over and over again in a way that nobody's really adding up all the numbers and saying, did they get what they were supposed to get last time?
Yeah, well, OpenAI is particularly egregious on that front because, the SoftBank stuff, it's really unclear where, if that money's even going to come through because it's, contingent on the conversion. By the way, all these people that the New York Times mentioned in their story, like Dragoneer, that are putting in like some sort of side money, like I think it was some kind of an SPV actually into OpenAI, like they also could be buying into a company that might not be able to successfully convert into a for-profit. Like the numbers are well ahead of like the actuality on any of this shit. So it's super problematic. And also, I mean, like you can't bring it up enough, in my opinion, is Stargate. And like that also had a huge number attached to it, $500 billion, which, as far as I can tell.
That was a Trump number too. That was
it was a Trump number. Yeah.
And was it Larry Ellison was the third person who was there?
Larry and Massa, they were all there. And but the 500 billion number was not like, they have like a very, advanced spreadsheet where they calculated like project by project and realized over 10 years what it was.
Number?
Yeah, like what's a number that's too big? Though that would, a trillion, no one's going to believe that. And like 200 billion, that seems like not a big number. So they end up with this half a trillion. You used to work
for the publication. Weren't you you were a contributor or something on that story where the Wall Street Journal said
I got a tagline
OpenAI was going to raise like 6 trillion. What was the number?
7 trillion.
In the Wall Street Journal. What were they doing? Like, why did that happen? You're free now. What's the answer? Like, what?
There's only so much I can say on that one. But I will say that, like, you should give a lot of journalists put a lot of stock into true at the time. As a defense,
people were saying to other people that they were throwing around insane numbers to each other. And
Sam ended up making fun of it too. After it came out, he's like, "Fuck it, let's do 9 trillion." And it's like, you know what, Sam? Like, you can't have it both ways, and that's all I'll say about that.
Right. Sam was clearly out. He was, I'm sure, out and about throwing around big numbers, and then the Wall Street Journal reported it, and people have the right to know. But I think the Journal should have never put it in the headline, which I think was my stance at the time. And it should have been much more like, in this meeting with this person, he said this number, and they probably should have said, and that's absurd. I mean, I honestly think that's our competitive advantage. Like that if we were throwing around, it's either this is a meaningless number, which is what I think it ended up being, because it's like, oh, it's a statement about overall spending across like the economy, or, it's just like putting it in the headline as if it's like a deal number was the insane
Yeah,
that the journal
if you
did.
pass around the hat enough times, I guess you can reach 7 trillion. Was like the
Just count everything in
implication
the world.
of that headline. No, well, yeah, and I actually think the best story that came out that year on that topic was what the Times ended up doing. A bunch of months later, where they talked about how all of these chip manufacturers laughed Sam out of the room when he was going around to like whatever at like TSMC or SK Hynix.
Yeah. They were like they called him a podcast guy or something, or
a podcast bro, which I don't even know what that means,
so
but I
good.
like it. Yeah. Because when the big boys, the ones who actually deal with numbers and like production at that scale are like seeing you put your fucking pitch deck up on the screen and they're just like, that's not how it works, brah. That was like the reality check I was very happy to see happen to Sam.
Yeah, that was a good story. That's good. We criticized the New York Times. We complimented them. We're like back to Dead Cat here.
No, Tim Apple, super embarrassing. $600 billion, meaningless number. I also saw one of the things that came out of it was like, a headline was like Apple to move production of like Corning glass to Kentucky or something. And someone can fact check me on this. I'm pretty sure they already have that.
Yeah,
I think they already do.
I think they'd already said it was like all in the United States, and now they're like saying it again. And somebody I think pointed out like, weren't they already supposed to be? I think it might have been Mark Gurman saying like weren't they already supposed to be 100% in the U.S. So
yeah, it's very much like if you remember the episode of Mad Men when he's working with Lucky Strike and they have the ad campaign for the cigarettes. It's toasted.
Yeah. Of course I remember that.
Yeah. So that was basically the it's toasted moment for Apple. Just being like, now glass manufactured in the US. Never enough of that shit. And it works on Trump. And it's frankly a lot more realistic and meaningful.
The key is that you just say, Trump, you get credit for this thing. It's like, it doesn't matter if you were doing it or not. It's just like that now the credit flows to him. Anyway,
well,
that's
it's way
show.
better than like the
Howard Lutnick
going around during the tariff moment, trying to get people hyped up that we're going to start doing the little screws in the iPhones in America. Or he was like giddily going on CNBC talking about that. Like that one never should have made it out of the brainstorming session. So this is better. I'll give him credit for that.
All right. See you next week.